Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Good morning to you. The day before Thanksgiving. It's November 22nd, 2017. And it's the anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy as well. Just pointing it out. You know, it's a strange time. It's a strange time. I have found myself in the last months twice, I think, retweeting something that Bill Kristol has said. And Bill Kristol, as you may recall, is a neocon. He and I are as oppositional on issues as two people could be. And yet the Trump era has made him so sick, just sick, that he's tweeting things like this. And this is one I retweeted. This is from a neoconservative of the first order, William Kristol. The GOP tax bill is bringing out my inner socialist. The sex scandals are bringing out my inner feminist. Donald Trump and Roy Moore are bringing out my inner liberal. All caps, what is happening? Well, I understand, Bill. Strange times that you and I and a whole bunch of other people we wouldn't necessarily be hanging with find ourselves in the same corner. And maybe there is hope to be had in that. Another person who I believe he's been a lifetime Republican, served, I think, on the Jeb Bush campaign, tweeted that for the first time, he said he has given money to a Democratic candidate. He intends to vote for a Democrat. And he said, I don't see how a real Republican could do anything else. Because their party, the party they thought they belonged to, is no longer in existence. And so you see the true believers, who at least I'll give them that they are true believers. And even if I don't agree with them, but the hypocritical, opportunistic, principled only for the moment folks who seem to make up an extraordinary percentage of the Republican Party, man, it is truly breathtaking. Mr. President, are you saying you would vote for an alleged child molester rather than a Democrat? Yep. And so would a whole bunch of other members of the Family Values Party. Oh, I mean, think of the two pillars of what they were about. Three, I'll give them three. Three pillars of what conservative republicanism was about. Strong defense, right? And you now have Republicans looking the other way as a hostile foreign power, namely Russia, has infiltrated our government at the highest levels, it appears, and has perhaps stolen an election. So they don't see that as worthy of investigation. So much for strong on defense. Anti-deficit. Oh, anytime Democrats wanted to spend any money on programs to help the lesser of us, the Republicans would scream, growing the deficit, can't do that. And now you ask them about deficits, they don't give a damn. because they're the ones who are spending the money. And they ain't spending it on the least of us or the lesser of us. They're spending it on the richest of us. And then there was the family values thing that was the party, right? Look at them now. So to stand with the party as it exists now and to still pretend that you are a deficit hawk, hawkish also on defense, and concerned about loosening morals in our country, then how do you... It's unbelievable how unprincipled, totally without principle, these people are. So much for anything they've been telling us for God knows how long. I guess most of them didn't even believe it. It was just this mantra they said. But the minute it got in the way of them acquiring more power, out it goes. For the second day in a row, my newspapers did not arrive at my doorstep, as they have faithfully for a million years. And I don't know what's going on, but I don't have a bunch of papers here today. We'll see how that changes things. I noted before that it was the anniversary of JFK's death, one of those days where everybody says you remember where you were. I was homesick from school. I had the TV on. Oh, I got it from beginning to end. And, man, I remember praying and praying that he wasn't dead when the news first came in. It was the first time I saw my father cry. It was the day before my parents' 20th anniversary. Somebody wrote something somewhere today, I can't recall, about the guy who also essentially died, or at least his career died, on the day that JFK died. And that is a guy named Vaughn Meader. Now, unless you were alive at the time, you could never know how big a to-do he was. He happened to be a comedian who had incredible ability to do a JFK impersonation and also to sort of look like him as well. And so with JFK's ascension to the presidency, this little-known comedian, Vaughn Meader, was, catapulted into international fame. His first comedy album, got to number one so fast, head spun, especially Peter, Paul, and Mary, since their album was the one knocked off out of first place. Vaughn Meader. His album was called The First Family, and it was funny. It was funny. And Vaughn Meader was in Milwaukee, November 22nd, 1963. And he got into a cab, and the cabbie said, what do you think about JFK? And Meader thought he was, playing with him or something. I mean, what do you think about him being blown away like that? And that's when Meader learned that his career, short-lived as it was, 3 years about, was over. Stores refused to carry his album. Any gigs he had were immediately canceled. And he was finished. He died in 2004. And the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say, is that after his career died, Vaughn Meader went home to Hallowell, Maine, little town, I guess, and essentially became the town drunk. Or as the article I read said, the beloved town drunk. Everybody sort of took care of him. Everybody liked him. A reporter who was going to interview him was told, you better get him right after breakfast because it's usually downhill from then. But he wouldn't hurt a fly, and he'd pop up at a bar called The Wharf on the Kennebec River and play ragtime piano. Lenny Bruce summed it up the first time he took the stage after JFK's assassination. The first words out of Lenny Bruce's mouth were, man, boy, is Vaughn Meader fucked. I'm sure it got a big laugh. So, something I read and I thought, collateral damage there. Although he wrote, JFK gave him this celebrity and allowed him that moment at the Heights and being on the Ed Sullivan Show as opposed to playing ragtime at the Wharf at the Kennebunk River, sloshed a life. Something that I noted when looking at, I didn't see video, but I saw still photos. One of the president pardoning the turkey, and another of the first lady and her son inspecting the Christmas tree as it was delivered. And in both instances, my eye was caught by the son. Now in that gawky sort of outgrowing, probably growing an inch every night when he goes to bed, ungainly, gawky age. But I want to say this. I have never seen that child smile. I have never seen him smile. And my heart goes out to him. It really does. He no more wanted to be out front at that turkey thing. You could see it in every fiber of his string bean being. I feel for him. God, I feel for him. I forget which paper. Maybe it was the New York Times or the Post, obviously, because those are the two I really sifted through online today. Posted a review of all the women who have accused Donald Trump of sexual harassment and or assault. And all of the stories sounded vaguely familiar. Yes, they had spoken out. Yes, we heard them, and then nothing happened. A few of them are reporters who had gone to interview him. Some, of course, are reality show contestants and or beauty queens. Some are just people. One was a secretary delivering something to him at Trump Tower. We'll see. After all, Trump himself said something yesterday. I wrote it down because couldn't rip it. Trump said this, I'm going to quote. "Women are very special. I think it's a very special time. A lot of things are coming out, and I think that's good, and I think it's very, very good for women, and I'm very happy a lot of these things are coming out. I'm very happy." You know, if I were to count up in that utterance how many words he used to communicate how he was feeling about women, I don't think there's more than like 5. Special, very, special, very, good, happy, very good, very, very good. This guy really does speak at about a second grade level. And I'm a Turner Classic Movie fiend. And the other night, Being There was on. That's the movie about an idiot, essentially, whose utterances, sort of like this, are taken as genius because they really don't mean much of anything, but people assume that there's speaking in metaphors or something. And he ends up, at the end of the movie, walking on water and essentially about to become the president of the United States. And at the time the movie came out, Peter Sellers plays this guy. At the time the movie came out, I mean, it was very, very successful. It is a very funny movie. And funny because it's so ridiculous that this idiot and when you watch the movie now, Being There, you think, being there, been there, are there. We're totally living it. Totally living it. Yeah, his name's not Chauncey Gardner. His name is Donald Trump. And here we are. Amazing. Brooke writes, regarding yesterday's discussion on sexual allegations, it bothers me that it only takes 1 or 2 unsubstantiated claims to get someone fired. It bothers me too. What happened to innocent until proven guilty in a court of law? It just seems like if someone makes a claim, it must be true. We've gone, because that's what we do now in this country, right? We've just done a 180. It used to be if a woman claimed a powerful man had harassed or assaulted her, she was immediately unbelieved, disbelieved, shown the door, didn't get any attention at all. And now, you're right, a woman with malice in her heart could come out and, yeah, probably taint and or take down a powerful guy with a story that she could concoct. It's true. That's why I said yesterday, I think it's so important to not conflate all of these things and to allow some kind of a justice to be served. I think oftentimes journalism done right can do that. And as I mentioned, the women who have accused Roy Moore, if you don't believe them, then I think you're out of your mind. They did not seek out publicity. They did not seek out the reporters. The reporters came after them, and only after 1, 2, 3 conversations with them, cajoling them to come forward, did the women agree to talk. And then the reporters, not just taken he said, she said, they went and corroborated, found contemporaneous accounts, found that the very day that the woman said that Roy Moore, met her at the courthouse, yes, indeed, her mother's case was on the docket and Roy Moore was at the courthouse that day. I mean, how everything fits together. The Post has done that with that story and with Charlie Rowe's story. A great deal of gumshoe reportage that is the same as what a prosecutor would do, trying to build a case. But you're right. The thing, some of these things, and I mean Weinstein. Come on. I mean, where there are things where I do not have any doubt of the veracity of these claims. There are a few that I don't think rise to a level that should have been given all the attention. The Franken one is most troubling to me. And by the way, I'm not sure what Arianna Huffington came out with a picture she said was taken at the same photo op, but he's not wearing. I'm very confused about it. And she is, I mean, it's from a ways back, just as the accusation was from maybe 10 years ago. And in it, Arianna Huffington has her hands around Franken's neck, looking like she's strangling him. And she said, okay, here's a picture. Am I fired now? Lock me up. Looks like I'm trying to kill him. And pointing out that, and yesterday I had CNN on, and some idiot, the guy whose show it was, or was filling in for somebody, actually in the course of doing an interview said, well, Al Franken groped that woman, and I literally screamed at the television, what? The picture doesn't show him groping her. And that's an anchor guy saying that, and no one pushed back. They let that one go. So now Al Franken groped her. Al Franken had his hands like 2 inches away from her breasts in a clear set-up photo that was intended to be funny. Does that rise to sexual assault? This woman says no. Anyway, back to Brooke. Regardless of the issue, I am always concerned when we start to see a piling on mentality. Me too. And what drives it, though, is media, this sort of absolutely media with like a dog on a bone. They got this story. It's got everything. It's got sex. It's got power. It's got taking people down. It's not hard to, it's not like net neutrality where, people's eyes start going around in their heads. This one's easy. And it is they, the media, who have been irresponsibly doing this conflation. I mean, everybody from a rapist to a guy taking a picture like that with a woman who had been somewhat sexually frisky with him and others during the tour. I mean, come on. And Brooke, number 3, says, I'm waiting for the first occurrence of a woman being accused of sexual misconduct. Well, those are nowhere near as numerous, obviously, but it could happen. We have a caller. Hi, caller.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, I don't know if you saw way back, maybe 25 years ago on SNL, Tom Petty was on there, and they had a skit. It was about groping women. And in the skit, he'd put his hands on the breasts of women, and they'd laugh and all that. Then after the skit, when they all came out on the stage, at the end like they do, he was doing that to the women out on the stage with the cast and all that, and they were all laughing, the women and the men.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a wrong thing, but
It depends. I mean, it depends.
It was
Those
funny,
are
and they were laughing.
those are performers.
Yeah.
Those are performers in a performance mode. It could well be both the men and the women there thought it was funny. It's okay, and was in fact consensual. It's also possible.
And I think with Al Franken, that was more of a comedy thing here.
I
that
agree.
part of it,
I agree.
think.
I agree.
I don't
I
consider
agree.
that the same thing. I really don't.
So people are calling for Al Franken to be thrown out of the Senate for this, and meanwhile, in all likelihood, this pedophilic serial groper and chaser of teenage girls is going to be ushered in to the Senate? You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can we look at things with some nuance? Can we see that not all hands on all breasts are the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So I agree. Thank you. And now we've got Congressman Conyers, a powerful old coot, if there ever was one. The thing about Conyers is the Democrats can't push him out fast enough. I mean, they are, frankly, I'm sure, thrilled that this has come to light that he essentially paid off a woman who had accused him of sexual harassment of some sort. And Conyers is well known. He was a good man in his day, but his day is long gone. I mean, he's an 88-year-old guy who, unlike my mother, has pretty much lost his marbles. He's just not up to the job. And the fact that he is the ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, which is about as high a post as one can have at the committee level, it being an extremely important committee, he got to go. And the Democrats need to have a functioning person in there. His hometown newspaper, the Detroit Free Press, has called for him to step down because the Detroit Free Press knows that Conyers should never have been reelected. He is not up to the job. He actually showed up at a United Auto Workers event in Detroit in his pajamas. He actually showed up at a meeting of top Democrats on Capitol Hill in his pajamas. Forgot to get dressed. So this presents itself as an opportunity to push him out. And that ain't bad. But it's different from Franken. It's way, 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 way different. Chris writes, I can't help but think how divided Donald Trump has made this country. That we might even go back to being a segregated nation. Well, I think we are in large part in many cases. Oh, sorry. Segregated, but not of color, but of political affiliation. Yeah. Democrat and Republican only stores, restaurants, etc. Sounds weird, but just seems like not too far-fetched in our current state. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's self-segregation. And that has been facilitated, obviously, by the internet. Where we each go out to find our news, and it's human. We go to places where people sound like us, where they think like us, where we feel comfortable. And so there's that self-segregation that has gone on. And I don't know. Not good. I mean, you can't have a country is sort of a false construct, right? It's, okay, so everybody born here with borders, lines being drawn here, anybody born here is a fill in the blank. And you have allegiance to everybody else, and we're all part of the same. I mean, it's a construct. The only thing that really creates a viable nation is shared beliefs, foundational beliefs. I mean, after the shared foundational beliefs, you can go off on separate. So we all agree on this, the rule of law, the blah, 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 the separation of church and state. Yep. And then we go off on other things where we separate into different political camps. But there is at that bedrock of understanding of what our nation means and that we are part of that. That's disappearing. That's truly disappearing. And once the foundation's gone, I'm not sure I understand what would be holding the house up. Henry writes, I put myself through college working in a fancy restaurant. Other than the owner and a cook, I was the only other male working there, along with about a dozen or so waitresses. We were a family. At the end of a long night, it wasn't all that unusual for me to massage any waitress's shoulders. During a busy rush, we were always touching each other. It was necessary at times. Touching someone from behind would let them know you were behind them, and helped avoid collisions. We were all comfortable with one another, and the discussions during quiet times were often salty discussions that most people would find too sexual in nature. Much of what went on there back in the 80s would probably get me fired today. Anyone who's worked in a restaurant knows you got to touch. Yeah, you got to. Behind you. Right. I mean, you're working in close quarters. Oh, God. See, people have gotten so that they can't make distinctions. Boy, we're stupid. We've just gotten stupid. I don't know what to say. Stupid. Oh, and speaking of, I got to tell you, I am angry at a lot of folks in the media right now. I'm angry at the ones that are doing this conflation. I am angry at the White House press corps, at least those who, was it yesterday? Abided by the press secretary's order that nobody could ask a question of her until they told everybody what they were thankful for. And I am so angry that entire press corps didn't stand up and walk out. Maybe someone could have said, we're thankful for our personal liberty and dignity so that we don't have to stay here and tolerate being infantilized like this. Goodbye. And they should have walked out. I didn't see it, but my understanding is everybody who asked a question abided by her rule. Unbelievable. We have a caller. Hi, caller.
Yes. Good morning, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, Lynn. How about a totally opposite opinion of most people, but it's totally, I think it could be correct. Thank God Donald Trump got elected. Here's why you say that. I didn't vote for him, and I don't think he's a good president. He's terrible. What has it done for us, though, as a country? like a previous caller had mentioned, that it's divided us further. I think not. I think it's finally awakened us to realize that what we hold dear and near to us should be spoken about. Sexual assault being talked about. A lot of different issues are being exposed now because Trump's opened up these wounds or these scabs that are on our country. And it's terrible. It feels terrible. And we are terrible. But in this terribleness, we're finding unity, even amongst Democrats and Republicans, because we can both realize that he's out of his mind. And if we can both realize, both parties can understand each other's point, that we're not opposed to each other, we're opposed to nonsense, hopefully we can get to the middle, and then we'll find solutions. Would that be an answer?
Yeah, well, I understand what you're saying. He came in and he kicked over all the stones and rocks and furniture, and everything was sort of laid bare. And so, it's hard not to see ourselves and our flaws more clearly. But I can't say I'm glad was elected because the damage he is doing, a lot of it will take decades, if not, or be impossible to correct. So I hear what you're saying, and I think, the fact that I end up sort of on the same side in many respects with Bill Kristol shows what you're saying, that good people or serious people are finding themselves appalled at the same thing. But I don't know. I don't know. You know what I was thinking the other day?
It's scary. Right.
You know what? I mean, you know how often in a sci-fi film, the only way that humans stop killing each other and behaving abominably is when they face a common threat. And that's some, aliens, extraterrestrials coming to it. And then all of a sudden we realize, oh, wait a minute. It doesn't matter if I'm Russian and he's American or I'm white and they're black. We're all, we are all together. I was sort of, thinking yesterday, now is the time that we need some invasion from Mars to get our heads straightened out. And maybe Trump is a little bit like that, but I don't know that enough.
Exactly, and it's a perverse way to look at things. I mean, if they call these things, it's called binary opposition. When you have two things that are opposed to each other, you think they're opposed to each other, but actually they're not. They're the same thing, and that's what you have. That's what everybody becomes problems. They think, the solution's either Democrat or Republican, and like you mentioned before, when they asked you to be on a talk show, they didn't really want you to talk about information. They wanted you to throw flames at the other team,
right? And
say you were against abortion or the topic may be,
right?
And you told them, well, you're more nuanced. The way you say, well, you're not part of this. You're not part of the fun. The fun is throwing fireballs at people and telling them how terrible they are. And you said, I'm not playing that game. And they said, well, you can't come to our game because that's the game to play.
Yeah.
Is to hurt the other team and make fun of them,
right.
Even if you don't believe it. To do all this, and that's what the entertainment. That's what all Fox News or even CNN or any station wants you to come to the show and watch them each have the battle. But you're not here to learn anything. If you come to learn something, you come to the wrong place. If you want to come and see a battle and punching and fighting and I'm the Army of Justice and I'm going to knock you down, Lynn. Then come to the news stations, come to the internet, come to Facebook. It's happening every day. Every second you can go on and punch somebody.
Right.
And they can punch you back, then you can go to run away. Or you can just decide, I'm not playing the game.
Right. Everything has to be good guy, bad guy, contrarian. And it's absurd.
Exactly.
And it is so childish. It is just...
It's completely childish because kids don't do this. Think about this.
No, actually, it's not fair to kids to say that. Is it?
Right, because kids they don't ever talk about it. They would, if you had kindergarten play together, they're going to come home and say, "Hey, Mom and Dad, I played with a Jewish black kid today."
Yeah.
No, they would just
Right.
say, "I play with friends. I play with Joey,
Right.
or Sammy, or Pete, or the girl, or we had so much fun." They never hear about. They never hear about stupid things we talk about. Oh, what color? What religion is he? What kids like? What the hell? All right, Lynn. So that's
All right.
the diatribe for the day.
Hey.
I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Lynn. Chris writes. Chris, by the way, has one of those last names that, as a little kid, to have to learn how to spell that when some of us just had a few letters and they were, wow. I'm just counting how many consonants are in one spot. 1, 2, 3, 5 consonants in a row. Jeez. Although one's a Y, so. And sometimes Y. Chris writes, we do have an outside threat that is alien to our way of life, and it's the Russians. And half the country doesn't care to unite around this common threat. No. Especially the Republicans do not want, oh no, I don't see no Russians here, and what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Wow. The Russians. Yeah, Trump talked to Vlad yesterday for how long? Over an hour? Putin just must be, he can't believe how lucky he got. He can't believe that America elected this idiot. It's who can be played, really, as a child can be played. Give him a shiny object. Tell him he's wonderful. Tell him he's the greatest. And that's all it's required. Then give him another shiny thing. No problem. He'll love you. He'll look up to you. He'll do whatever you ask. Something good that happened in the world, and in which no blood was shed that I'm aware of, is that Mugabe, I think the longest serving tyrant in Africa, who started as a freedom fighter wresting Rhodesia, which was the country under white rule, away from the whites and giving it back to the native people, and renaming that country Zimbabwe instead of after the colonial guy who decided it was his, namely Mr. Rhodes. But Mugabe, with his iron grip on this nation for so long, was taken out of office with the army, whoever that army, the army who did that, wow, that is one impressive coup. Because for one thing, they didn't take over. They just moved in and sort of told Mugabe, I think you're pretty much done here, sir. They let him go out and about for a day or two, let him give a speech, and then finally, he got the message and he's gone. That's amazing. That sometimes, yes, powerful people can be deposed, setting off jubilation in the streets, and no blood is spilled. You gotta tip your hat to him. Truly. Not Mugabe, but to the Zimbabweans who pulled that off. One other thing, I think. the overreaction to some of this sexual stuff, like, whose head's going to roll next? I mean, by the time I come back here on Monday, anyone want to take a guess at how many other guys have been taken down? I mean, a lot of them aren't getting that much attention. Like one of the founders of Pixar Studios is gone. He got knocked off the other day for the same stuff. So some that don't have, like, names that most people know are not getting the kind of publicity, but powerful men are excusing themselves and saying, I have to leave now. So one of the overreactions is there have been some calls in some companies excuse me, for the Christmas office parties to be canceled, or that memos have to be sent out reminding people how to behave, how to comport themselves at the Christmas party. And Christmas parties are notorious, actually, for a lot of bad behavior. Yeah? We all got stories, don't we? Christmas party stories? I have one. Takes me back to 1975, maybe 76. I'm the sole female reporter at WISC Television in Madison, Wisconsin. And I also was, I don't know if I was already an anchor at that time or a talk show host, but I don't think so. But I was the steward of the union. And as such, sat on the Madison Labor Council with a bunch of white guys. And I felt very out of place there, I have to tell you. But I was the union steward. So I would deal with grievances and go to management and blah, blah, blah. One of the biggest grievances was one of my own, where the general manager took me off the air because he did not believe that women should be delivering news. He was a new GM. When he came in and saw me sitting behind the anchor desk, he went ballistic. So my husband at the time was a law student, and between him and the union, we went after him, and man, that thing was resolved rather quickly, to say the least. And there I was within a week back on the set. But the Christmas party, I remember, involved, so I was already an anchor then, involved the same guy. A real gem named Dwayne Shermer. I don't know why his name just came back to me, but as I said, as you get older, names from 50 years ago come blowing back into your head, while the name of the guy sitting next to you, who you know very well, and Carlo, who's here today, can attest to this. I have called him Alex. I have called him, I think I called you, I don't know. I've called you Alex, yeah. Alex for sure. But I think there have been, I could have called you Steven for any. I could have called you Jess or Celine. I get mixed up. But I can remember Dwayne Shermer's name. What a creep. Anyway, so we had the office party, the Christmas office party. And everybody's drinking too much. So a lot of touchy-feely crap going on. And Dwayne Shermer drunkenly approaches me and said, Come on. It was such a generous kind of offer. He said, come on, dance with me. Let's show people how well management and labor get along. And I said, no, thank you. No, thank you. Come on, he said, dance with me, grabbing me out onto the dance floor. You know, and there my memory goes. I don't remember if I took a step or a two with him but yeah, that was a boss, the big boss, manhandling me, telling me to dance with him. That today, right, would be serious grounds for a sexual harassment suit, right? Nothing, of course. The concept of sexual harassment did not exist. And this was just the kind of crap that any woman was expected to deal with. That's all. Just deal with it, okay? So I did. But you can bet that at office parties all over the country, this will be, how many times since this has happened, if you're a man or if you're a woman, have you referenced this stuff while talking to a member of the opposite sex or maybe touching them in some way, right? It's in our head so much right now. But I don't know how really seriously we're taking it. Because we are, again, a rather unserious people. And right now, there's almost an entertainment aspect to this. Who's next? Who's next? Watching the high and mighty fall off their pedestals is great entertainment for the masses. Whether or not any real change will come of this, I remain skeptical, because I think the dust will eventually settle a little. I don't know. All in all, this has proved to be a, I think, important moment, as even Donald Trump seems to realize. You notice when he said his, oh yeah, I think women are very special, and this is a very special, very, very special time, and things are coming, he said things are being exposed, and I thought, I wouldn't exactly put it that way, Mr. President, because now, everything sort of has a double meaning. Things are coming out, and everything's being exposed. Yes. Things have been exposed for a long time, and no one wanted to hear about it. And now things are being exposed, and lo and behold, there's an audience waiting, thirsting for the next one. So, I think that's pretty much all I got today. I keep wanting to do a job on fraternities, but I somehow never feel up to it. I've done that in my in past shows, and it always breaks down to the same thing. You folks who had great experiences in the Greek system, tell me, all the great things that system did and continues to do for charities and for just helping young students have an immediate community on a big, scary campus and all that kind of stuff. But I still, I don't like them. Because they're places of exclusion. Because, as I've told you, I suffered through about an hour and a half of rush in 1966 at Northwestern University, when I didn't even quite understand what the hell it was. But it quickly became apparent. I've told the story. Ushered into the Kappa Kappa Gamma house with a whole bunch of other freshmen. And were greeted by these lovely, smiling blondes. And some of us are sent in this way and some are sent that way. And we were being sifted and winnowed. I realized it when I found myself standing in a room with a few black girls, some obvious Jewish girls, some fat girls, some not particularly good-looking girls. And I looked around the room and I thought, this be the reject room. And that's the last experience I had in a sorority. I left. Just that one sifting and winnowing thing of being chosen, which is nice if you were. And obviously, sororities were pretty well segregated based on race and based on religion, so that a Jew like me was expected to belong to a Jew fraternity or sorority, right? And so that segregation, I don't like it. And now we know that these pledges die. A lot of them die. I'm sorry. I know fraternities and sororities do charitable stuff. But you know what? I've never been in a fraternity or sorority, but guess what? I do charitable stuff too. And I've been part of groups that have organized to do charitable stuff, which can be done without sororities or fraternities. So there, I did my little rant. And we got one more email here from Chuck. Like Henry, I worked in a... Who didn't work in a restaurant? Raise your hands. I was breakfast waitress at a Holiday Inn. God, that was the hardest job I ever had. Like Henry, I worked in a restaurant too. I worked quite a few Christmas parties over the years. Oh, man. And in my opinion, companies are out of their minds if they think having a party and getting their employees liquored up is a good idea. I've seen it all, and I would guess that many a Christmas party has resulted in firings. I've seen employees throw up, grab asses, fist fight, pass out, and tell off the boss. You would think HR would have killed off these parties long ago. I worked, the radio station I worked for, WPTT, PTT. You think I even remember the call letters? Renda Broadcasting. They were so cheap. They were so cheap that they held, and I think more and more are doing this, they held the Christmas party after Christmas. So it was always held after the first of the year because you could rent a place a whole lot cheaper then instead of doing the Christmas party rate. I can't make it. What cheapskates. Wow, what amazing cheapskates. Yeah, sue me if you want. Telling the truth. All right, guys, that's it. And with great sincerity, I do say to you, have a very happy Thanksgiving. And I don't know. I don't know. Good luck. That's all I have to say. Enjoy yourselves. I'll see you back here on Monday. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.